The chandeliers above us flickered like they were holding their breath. Every time the violinist hit a high note, the glasses on the table trembled. No one noticed except me. Of course no one noticed except me. I'm the kind of guy who counts the bubbles in his soda and straightens the cutlery at restaurants. She stood 3 feet away, laughing with someone in a navy velvet jacket. Her hair was pinned up tonight, like a secret she didn't want me to touch. I watched her fingers trace the stem of her wine glass, the way she always does when she's nervous. I shouldn't still know her tells, but I do. The waiters moved like ghosts. Silver trays, champagne, small bites I couldn't pronounce. The whole room smelled of perfume, expensive fabric, and something sour that sat under my tongue. Everyone else was networking. I was memorizing her body language like a man about to lose his place in a story. And then, mid-laugh, she did it. She reached for me without looking, the automatic gesture of someone who's used to having you as a prop. Her hand floated there, open, like a bridge. For a split second, I saw our kitchen at home, the crooked fork, the muted dinners, her phone face down. All of it in one flash. I didn't take her hand. I leaned in, my mouth close to her ear. The music swelled. I whispered, "Not anymore." The words landed like a pin on marble. She froze. The man in the velvet jacket looked confused. The violinist kept playing. I walked out before she could say anything, my shoes clicking on the marble floor louder than the applause behind me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I wasn't staying in that room any longer. Out in the hallway, away from the glow of the ballroom, my phone buzzed. One unread message from a number with no name attached. The preview read, "He's not here yet. Hurry." My stomach turned. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, wondering which version of my wife was waiting for me to catch up, the one in the ballroom or the one in this message. I didn't open the message right away, just stared at it. "He's not here yet. Hurry." No name, no emoji, not even a typo. Just cold, deliberate punctuation. My thumb hovered over it, but I couldn't bring myself to tap. What if I opened it and saw more? What if it was meant for someone else entirely? Or worse, what if it wasn't? I slid the phone into my pocket, walked past a floral arrangement taller than me, and found the coat check. I asked the girl behind the counter for my jacket, even though I wasn't planning on leaving yet. I just needed the familiar weight of something that belonged to me. Something that hadn't been touched, reshaped, or betrayed. "Sir," she said, handing it to me, "the gala hasn't officially started yet. You sure you're heading out?" I shook my head. Not leaving. Just cold. I wasn't cold. I was boiling. The air in the hallway smelled like polished wood and disappointment. I leaned against the wall, looked at the floor tiles, noticed one was chipped near the baseboard. My brain was begging for a distraction, but my memory wouldn't shut up. I kept replaying the way Darla had reached for my hand. Like she still owned the right to pretend. Like nothing had shifted. But I had seen it last weekend. The scratch on her back. We were getting ready for dinner with her parents. She wore that maroon dress with the low back, said it made her feel dangerous. I saw it when she reached for her heels. A single, thin red mark just above her left shoulder blade. It wasn't new. It wasn't from clothes. It was clean, deliberate, almost careful. I didn't say anything at the time, just stared at it long enough for her to notice. "You okay?" she asked, zipping her bag. I lied. Said yes. Because if I said what I was thinking, who scratched you like that? And why are you smiling tonight? I knew I wouldn't survive the answer. Now here I was, 10 feet from the ballroom, holding my coat like a shield, wondering what kind of man I'd become. I used to be the quiet one, the predictable one, the guy who took pride in being a safe place for someone else's chaos. I never imagined I'd be the one standing alone, trying to decode a message that wasn't mine, after whispering a goodbye in the middle of her night. I finally opened it. "He's not here yet. Hurry." That was it. Nothing else. I tapped on the number. No name. No photo. Just digits. My hands shook a little, and not from nerves, but from something worse, recognition. The number had a familiar area code. Same one Darla used for her office phone. Same prefix as a few of her coworkers' numbers I'd seen in our call logs back, when things still felt shared. I didn't want to guess. I didn't want to know. But now the message lived in my phone, and I couldn't delete it. I needed it. Like a cut you keep pressing to make sure it still hurts. Behind the ballroom doors, applause erupted. A speech had begun. I slipped the phone back in my coat and slowly returned to the edge of the ballroom. I stayed in the shadows, unseen. Darla was sitting now, across from a group of men in suits, laughing too loudly at something one of them said. Her glass was still half full. She was twirling it again. She hadn't noticed I was gone. Or maybe she had, and didn't care. Either way, I knew what I had to do. I had to stay. I had to watch this unfold, piece by piece. Because whatever was going on, it wasn't over yet. And neither was I. I stayed hidden in the shadows just long enough to become invisible to her. Funny how that works. When someone stops looking for you, you start disappearing whether you mean to or not. She laughed again. Same pitch. Same fake crinkle near her eyes. I'd seen her do it before in photos she posted on LinkedIn. The kind of laugh that says, I'm part of this world now. She didn't used to be. I remember a time Darla would get anxious at events like this. She used to cling to my sleeve, whisper jokes in my ear to avoid talking to strangers. We once left a product launch party 15 minutes in because the lighting was too harsh and her heel gave her a blister. We stopped for drive-through milkshakes on the way home, and she told me that none of this was her scene. Apparently it is now. I scanned the crowd and found him, her boss. Mr. Denim on Fridays, first name Bennett. I'd only met him once, and that was enough. A guy who talks with his hands and makes eye contact like a dare. He had that effortless confidence you can't buy, just born into. Trust fund eyebrows. Collarbone smugness. The kind of man women call harmless, while they tilt toward him anyway. He was already watching her. Not casually, not like a professional, but with a softness that made my jaw lock. His gaze lingered just too long on the curve of her neck as she reached for a napkin. And then, God help me, she looked up and smiled at him like he had said something funny. But he hadn't said a word. You don't smile like that at someone by accident. It's a language of its own. One I hadn't been taught. I should have walked in then. I should have approached the table, put my hand on her shoulder, kissed her cheek, staked the claim I no longer believed I had. But I didn't. I stood there like a coward, memorizing the details in case I needed to recite them later. Her lipstick shade. The way her foot tapped to a rhythm no one else heard. The half second it took her to tuck her hair behind her ear when Bennett leaned in. The speech ended. Polite applause. A clink of champagne glasses. People began moving around again, making their way to the buffet or slipping out for air. She stood up, and for a moment, she looked toward the entrance. Right past me. Her eyes swept the room, and I held my breath. But she wasn't looking for me. She checked her phone instead. Her lips moved, reading a message. Her mouth tightened, then softened. She looked back toward Bennett and gave the tiniest nod. I felt something in me deflate. Something I'd been protecting. I pulled out my own phone again and opened that same message. He's not here yet. Hurry. I copied the number, pasted it into a blank contact. I didn't save it. I just stared at it for a minute. Then, in a surge of something I still don't have a name for, I hit call. It rang once. Twice. Click. No voice. Just breathing. I didn't speak. Neither did they. After 4 seconds, they hung up. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like I'd just cheated death. But it wasn't fear, it was confirmation. Whoever was on the other end of that number knew who I was. And they didn't need to say a thing. I didn't go back into the ballroom. Not yet. I needed air. Something sharp to remind me I was still in my body, still tethered to something real. I took the long hallway past the coat check and slipped through the exit door that led to the back terrace. String lights hung above like constellations pretending to mean something. No one else was out there. Just the hum of traffic beyond the ivy-covered walls and the sound of my own thoughts turning feral. My hands were still shaking. Not from rage. Rage would have been easier. What I felt was smaller, colder, slower. Like erosion. Like watching your own house sink inch by inch into the ground, and no one else sees it happening but you. I pulled out my phone and opened the contacts again. The number I had called was still unsaved, sitting there like a landmine. I hovered over it. I could block it, delete it, pretend it was some freak miscommunication and go back inside and smile through whatever dinner speech they were giving now. But instead, I called Mark. He picked up after one ring. Dude, he said. You okay? You sound, what's going on? I stepped into the shadow of a column. You said Darla was with someone last week, at that lunch place on West 46th. Yeah. Looked like a client meeting, but, he hesitated. She was sitting on the same side of the booth. They weren't exactly whispering. Was he tall? Jacket with brown elbow patches? Mark whistled. Yeah, that's a memory. Why? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Elliot, he said, voice dropping. I didn't want to make you paranoid, man. I just thought you should know. Could have been innocent. No, I said, it wasn't. And I knew it wasn't because of something far more damning than an unsaved number or a smirk across the table. I knew because of the red folder. 2 nights ago, I stayed up late waiting for her to come home. She'd said it was a strategy workshop that ran long. I made chamomile tea I didn't drink and sat on the couch in the dark like a widower who hadn't received official word yet. When she came in around 11:30, she dropped her bag by the door and went straight to the bedroom. I waited 15 minutes, then tiptoed to her work tote like some bargain bin detective. I didn't dig. I didn't snoop. I just looked. Just enough to confirm one thing. The red folder was gone. She always carried it. Always. It was this cheap vinyl thing she got at a conference in Chicago, and she kept her printed briefs and contracts inside because she said it made her feel analog in a digital world. She'd once told me she liked scribbling on real paper with real pens. Said it slowed her thoughts down. But it wasn't there. In its place, a different folder. Slim, black, unmarked. New. And that meant something. It meant she had transferred something, physically, intentionally, from one folder to another. Which meant something in that red folder mattered. Which meant it was now in someone else's hands. Maybe even Bennett's. Back on the terrace, I pressed my palms into the cold stone railing and tried to breathe through my teeth. There were so many threads now, I couldn't keep track. The scratch, the message, the smile, the missing folder. None of it was proof, but none of it was meaningless. That's when I saw her. Darla stepped onto the terrace from the other end, holding a fresh glass of wine. She hadn't seen me yet. She was pacing slowly, phone in her other hand, face lit blue from the screen. I ducked behind the ivy wall and watched her through the slats like a man hiding from a truth he already knows. She wasn't smiling now. She looked tense. She checked over her shoulder, typed something quickly, waited. Then she spoke, quiet, rushed, urgent. No, he's still here. I can't just leave, he'll notice. A pause. I said I can't, okay? It's not safe right now. Her voice cracked just enough to make my spine stiffen. Not safe? Who the hell was she talking to? I stayed still, barely breathing. She didn't move closer. Just stood there, thumb hovering over her screen, debating her next move. Then she looked up, straight toward me. I stepped back too fast. A branch cracked under my shoe. Her head tilted. She saw me. I waited for her to speak, to call out, to lie, to explain. But she didn't. She just stared, like she didn't recognize me at all. She didn't say a word when she saw me. She just held my stare for a few seconds too long, like I was a stranger who'd wandered into the wrong scene, and she wasn't sure whether to scream or smile. Then, just as quickly, she looked away, took a small step back, sipped her wine, pretended it didn't happen. I waited for her to say something, anything, an excuse, a lie, a joke, hell, even my name. But she turned her back to me and walked inside. That was the moment something in me unhooked. You know that part of yourself that still hopes, even when the facts are stacked high against you. That part that says maybe it's not what it looks like. That part died right then. I didn't follow her. I left. No note. No goodbye. Just moved through the crowd like a vapor trail. Unseen, unnoticed, untethered. The gala lights blurred as I passed them. I felt like I was falling through glass. I took the late train home, stood the whole ride. My knees wouldn't let me sit. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her whispering into her phone. It's not safe right now. The words echoed louder than the train wheels. I got home around 1 a.m. and unlocked the door quietly, like I was the one cheating. Like I was the one sneaking in. Willow, our dog, didn't bark. She just looked up from her bed with those tired eyes, tail thumping once. Even she seemed to know something was wrong. The living room smelled like her perfume. But she wasn't home yet. I checked the bedroom, the kitchen. Empty. Her charger was missing. Her slippers weren't by the door. The red folder hadn't reappeared. Then I checked the key bowl, the place where we both kept our spares. Her key was gone. That was new. Darla never took her backup key. She used to joke that it was too jingly for her bag. I'd asked her once why she even kept it, and she'd said, in case I lose the other one or you lock me out during a fight. It was a dumb joke, but it stuck with me. And now it was missing. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Nothing from her. I sat down on the edge of the couch and stared at the floor for what felt like an hour. My fingers kept reaching for my wedding ring, twisting it the way I always did when I was anxious. Except tonight, I realized something else. I wasn't wearing it. At some point during the gala, I'd taken it off. Maybe when I was washing my hands. Maybe in the coat room. I didn't even remember. I felt my pulse spike. My hand started trembling. What the hell did that mean? Had I done it on purpose? Subconsciously? It was such a small detail, so tiny it could have gone unnoticed. But to me, it felt like a confession. Like some part of me had already let go before I even admitted it. That's when I made the mistake. I opened her laptop. I knew her password. She never changed it. The same one she's had since grad school, Merlot_89, because she thought it was nerdy and poetic. I only meant to glance. To confirm. To prove I was crazy so I could finally sleep. But what I found, she had a second email. Not work. Not personal. Something hidden. The inbox was clean. Just a single draft. Unsent. No subject. But still there. Like she'd written it and couldn't bring herself to delete it. I clicked it open. You said you'd handle it. He's still suspicious. You promised this wouldn't get messy. If he finds out about the money. That's where it stopped. No signature. No recipient. Just those two lines, sitting like a bomb with the pin halfway pulled. I stared at the screen, pulse hammering, hard in my throat. The money? What money? What was she hiding? And who the hell had promised to handle me? That draft wasn't written for me. It was written about me. I didn't sleep. Not even a second. I sat in the same position on the couch until the sun started to tint the windows with that early, ugly kind of gray. My eyes were locked on her laptop, which still sat open beside me like a wound that wouldn't clot. The draft email hadn't changed. It was still there. 2 chilling sentences. 2 sentences that hollowed me out more than any affair ever could. You said you'd handle it. He's still suspicious. You promised this wouldn't get messy. If he finds out about the money. It wasn't just that she'd written it. It was how carefully it had been hidden. A secondary inbox, not linked to her usual email client. No other messages. No sent folder. No trash. Just this one draft like a loaded chamber. At some point, around 6:30 a.m., I got up and started walking through the apartment like it was a crime scene. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I was looking for context. Something that would explain why the woman I'd shared my life with was now crafting contingency plans behind my back. In the bedroom closet, her overnight bag was missing. That bag only came out when she traveled for work. Darla never used it for weekends away or local conferences. It was her serious business bag. Heavy canvas, initials embossed on the side. A gift from her father, who always believed briefcases were for men and soft luggage was for women with ambition. It was gone. But that wasn't the worst part. The safe had dust on it. It's small, tucked behind her shoes, barely noticeable unless you know where to look. We bought it after we got engaged, mostly for documents, passports, birth certificates, a couple of emergency credit cards. I used to open it once a year to review everything, just for peace of mind. But the dust was undisturbed, which meant she hadn't taken anything from it, which meant whatever money she was referring to in that email wasn't stored here. So where was it? My stomach twisted. I tried to remember the last time we talked about finances. We had a shared account, but she had her own too. That was never a secret. Her paychecks went into hers, mine into mine, and we'd transfer to the joint one for bills. It was simple, clean, trusted. At least I thought so. I went to her desk, opened the drawers. Nothing obvious. Just notebooks, pens, work stuff. But there was something taped under the keyboard tray, a folded yellow sticky note. One of the old ones with the wine company logo on it. It had 2 things written on it. A number, $43,870. 00. And underneath it, done by October 14th. Confirmed transfer. That was 3 days from now. I stared at the note until the numbers started to swim. The handwriting was hers, but messier than usual. Rushed. No hearts over the I, like she used to do when signing birthday cards. Just a number and a deadline. What was she transferring? And to whom? My first instinct was to take a photo. But then I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe because documenting it made it feel real. Maybe because part of me didn't want to turn into that guy. The one who collects evidence like he's in a courtroom instead of a marriage. I folded the sticky note and slipped it into my wallet. Willow followed me from room to room, watching silently. She could tell I was off. Dogs always know. At 7:45 a.m., I heard the front door open. I didn't move. She walked in like it was any other morning. Hair slightly damp. No makeup. Hoodie. Joggers. like she'd just gone out for coffee and a casual walk. She saw me and froze, just for a second, but then smiled like she was rehearsing it. "Hey," she said, setting down her bag. "Didn't expect you to be up." I didn't answer. She walked over and kissed my temple like nothing had changed, like my insides hadn't calcified in the last 12 hours. "I grabbed your favorite," she added, holding out a paper cup. "Vanilla chai." I looked at the cup, then at her, and then I lied. "Thanks." Because I needed her to believe I was still in the dark. I needed time. And most of all, I needed to find out what the hell was happening before October 14th. For the next 2 days, I played the role of a man trying to forgive his wife. I let her lean on me again. I responded to her small talk, laughed at the appropriate beats, even agreed to join her for dinner Thursday night at the little Italian place we used to go to before everything turned gray. I became exactly what she needed: predictable, soft, distracted. But behind my eyes, everything was calculation. I watched her more closely now. Not just the way she moved or spoke, but what she touched, where she looked, how long she stayed in the bathroom, whether she double-checked that her phone was face down. She did. Every time. On the surface, nothing had changed between us. But under it, there was war. She started making calls in the kitchen with the faucet running. She'd never done that before. Once, when she was in the shower, I checked her phone. No new messages. Nothing suspicious. But when I looked into her recently deleted folder, it was empty. As in, manually cleared out. That might seem minor, but if you've lived with someone long enough, you know it's never minor. It means you're not looking at what they do. You're looking at what they don't leave behind. On Friday morning, I told her I was going to the hardware store to fix the squeaky bedroom door. It wasn't a lie. The door was squeaky. But that's not where I went. I took her spare car key from the junk drawer, opened her glove box, and found what I didn't even know I was looking for. A rental agreement. 2 pages, printed, signed. Unit number 312, the Langston Lofts. Lease start, August 15th. End, open. Tenant, Darla Camden. Emergency contact, Bennett Kale. I felt the breath leave my lungs like someone had knocked it out of me. Not because it proved what I feared, but because it wasn't hidden. Not locked away. Not shredded. Just sitting in the glove box like a takeout menu. That meant something. It meant she didn't think I'd ever look. She believed I was still the man who turned the other cheek. The man who stayed home while she worked late. The man who loved her too gently to ever doubt her. And honestly, I had been. But now I was the man standing in her car, holding a piece of paper that confirmed she had a second apartment, and a man listed under emergency contact who just so happened to be her boss. Langston Lofts was only 10 minutes away. I told myself I wouldn't go, that I'd wait, that I'd think this through. But my hands were already on the steering wheel. The building was modern, expensive, built for people who liked open shelving and brushed concrete. I waited across the street inside a coffee shop, trying not to look like a man preparing for psychological impact. At exactly 4:32 p.m., she arrived. Alone. She parked, walked in, used a fob at the front door. That part broke me more than it should have. The casualness of it. How practiced she was. Like she'd done it dozens of times. Like she belonged there. She stayed inside for 27 minutes. When she came out, she wasn't alone. Bennett followed. No suit this time. Just jeans and a hoodie. He didn't touch her. Didn't look at her. They walked separately, one behind the other like strangers. But when they got to his car, she climbed into the passenger seat. And they drove away. I followed for 6 blocks. Not close enough to be seen. Just enough to know they weren't heading toward the office. Or the wine label. Or any restaurant. They turned onto a quiet residential street and parked. Both got out. Walked up to a small beige house. He unlocked it. She went in first. And the door closed behind them. I stayed in my car for almost an hour. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was numb. I wasn't looking at a love story anymore. I was looking at an operation. Because whatever this was, it wasn't just an affair. There was money involved. There was strategy. And there was a date. October 14th. Tomorrow. October 14th arrived with unsettling quiet. No storm. No explosion. Just the usual autumn chill drifting through our apartment like it had every October before. But nothing felt normal. Not after what I'd seen. Not after that second apartment. Not after the draft email. And certainly not after watching her walk into a house with her boss and lock the door behind them. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I packed a small duffel bag, fed Willow, and left her sleeping like a child who had no idea the world was about to change. I didn't go far. I waited. And at 6:45 p.m., just before we were supposed to arrive at Langmore Cellars' autumn gala, I returned home. She was in the mirror, applying mascara, hair pinned back, wine-colored dress zipped halfway. "You're early," she said, not turning. I stepped into the room, heart steady for the first time in weeks. "Wanted to walk with you." She smiled. "That's sweet." But her eyes didn't quite meet mine. We rode in silence. Her perfume was soft and deliberate. I wondered who it was really for. The venue was the same: string lights, violinists, polite laughter laced with too much ambition. She floated through the crowd like royalty, and I followed 2 steps behind, still playing my part, still letting her think I was the same man I used to be, until the moment I wasn't. We were near the center of the ballroom when I stopped walking. She didn't notice. She kept going, greeting someone near the champagne tower, reaching casually behind her, expecting my hand. But I didn't give it. Instead, I took 2 steps forward, leaned in close, so only she could hear, and whispered, "Not anymore." She froze. I felt her body stiffen through the space between us. Then I turned and walked away, out the doors, into the street. And this time, I didn't look back. You might think that's where it ends. But the truth is, that was just the beginning. Because when I got back to the apartment that night, I already had an email drafted. Send it to her office. Subject line, $43, $870. Kindly forward this to legal. Attached were photos, the lease, the note, the draft email, and a copy of a financial statement I'd quietly requested from our shared account the day before. Turns out, the money wasn't hers to move. Turns out, she tried to list me as unfit to make financial decisions. Quietly, through a lawyer friend, probably assuming I'd go numb, stay passive, keep twisting my ring until I fell apart. But I didn't. I'd already transferred my name off everything that mattered. Closed accounts, canceled joint cards, left copies of paperwork in a separate P.O. box, rerouted my mail. By the time she got home, I was gone. And by the end of the month, she was out of the company. Turns out, her boss hadn't known everything either. The affair wasn't a plan. It was leverage. She used him, just like she used me. And when the cracks started showing, she tried to plug them with cash and charm and panic. But me? I didn't shout. I didn't throw things. I just made sure her next chapter didn't include me. Now I live in a smaller place. 1 bedroom. No wine fridge. The walls are bare, and the floors creak when it rains. But it's quiet, honest, and mine. Willow's snoring on the rug as I write this. There's a bent fork in the drawer. I keep it on purpose. A reminder that love should never come warped. And if it does, you put it down. You walk away. And you never, ever reach back.